Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my obeisances. We're going to be reading from Canto 3, Chapter 19, Text 23. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmlitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadah Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So we are reading again from chapter 19 in Canto 3. Hopefully you can see my screen. The killing of the demon Hiranyaksha. And this is text 23. So the Sanskrit. Tadadite samabhava sahasaridi vepatuhu smarantya bharturadesham stanachasrik pasu sruve. Tada, at that moment, dite of diti, samabhavat occurred. Sahasa, suddenly. Ridi, in the heart. Vepatuhu, a shudder. Smarantya, recalling. Bhartu, of her husband. Adesham, the words. Stanat, from her breast. Cha, and asrik, blood. Prasusruve, flowed. Translation, at that very moment, a shudder suddenly ran through the heart of Diti, the mother of Hiranyaksha. She recalled the words of her husband Kashyapa, and blood flowed from her breasts. Purport by Prabhupada. At Hiranyaksha's last moment, his mother, Diti, remembered what her husband had said. Although her sons would be demons, they would have the advantage of being killed by the personality of Godhead himself. She remembered this incident by the grace of the Lord, and her breast flowed blood instead of milk. In many instances, we find that when a mother is moved by affection for her sons, milk flows from her breasts. In the case of the demon's mother, the blood could not transform into milk, but it flowed down her breasts as it was. Blood transforms into milk. To drink milk is auspicious, but to drink blood is inauspicious. although they are one and the same thing. This formula is applicable in the case of cow's milk also. So this is a very interesting verse that comes right in the middle of this intense battle between Hiranyaksha and Lord Varaha. So just in the previous verse, we read that the Lord, the personal enjoyer of all sacrifices, after seeing this major display of illusion created by the demon, Hiranyaksha, he set up all kinds of weird things to happen around Lord Varaha. Varaha discharged his beloved Sudarshan and he dispersed all of that magic that the demon displayed. So, at that very moment, at the time when the Sudarshan disc was released by the Lord, the scene changes and we see here that Diti becomes the focus of attention. And it's only this one verse where the scene changes to Diti and then it goes back to how Lord Varaha responds. He tries to capture the Lord. The Lord, he thinks he's got the Lord in his arms, and then the Lord just stands to the side, smacks him under the ear, and that's it. That's the end of Hiranyaksha. So this verse is interestingly brought into the middle of that intense battle scene to take the focus away from the fight to Diti, the mother of Hiranyaksha, and how she's experiencing the fight. The Lord Sudarshan disc is a very powerful weapon. And as soon as the Sudarshan comes out, that's it. There's no other conversation to be had. We might remember in the story of Shishupal and Krishna. Shishupal is also Hiranyaksha, is one of the Jai and Vijay teams who came to fight with the Lord. So in the case of Shishupal, he insulted Krishna. Ever since he was a kid, he just hear Krishna's name and he would cry, wail, scream. He did not like Krishna. Like from the core of his heart, he did not like Krishna. Of course, he was a devotee being Jai and Vijay, but he couldn't handle it. He was so envious. And so during the Rajasuya Yagya, when he was insulting Krishna, Krishna simply tolerated, as is how he teaches us, Krishna teaches us to be tolerant like that in the story of Shishupal, in the story of being accused of stealing the Shamantaka jewel by Satyajit. So in these cases, Krishna simply tolerated insults. And he tolerated until he got to a point where he got to 100 insults, and then Krishna just took out the Sudarshan disc and poof, that was it. It was gone. Similarly with Paundraka, as soon as the Sudarshan disc came out, that was it. So we see that Sudarshan is so powerful, such a powerful weapon, that once it's released, that's it. Similarly with Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni. As soon as the Sudarshan disc came out, that was it. Durvasa Muni couldn't do anything else. So it's really interesting that the Sudarshan disc actually is not what kills Hiranyaksha. Even though is what's released in the prior verse, the Sudarshan disc is released to destroy the illusion that Hiranyaksha put together, or the magic that he put together, to try to kill or destroy Varaha. But when Diti sees the Sudarshan disc being released, That's the point when she becomes, excuse me, especially disturbed. Vepatu. Vepatu is meaning shuddered. She's in anxiety as a mother. And then she remembered the words of her husband Kashyapa. So I'll take you back to those words. It was in chapter 14, same canto, text 38. So Kashyapa Vacha, after Kashyapa and Diti engaged in um, unauthorized sexual activity to uh, to have progeny, Kashyapa then, after obliging his wife, he tells his wife, because of your minds being polluted, because of defilement of the particular time, because of your negligence of my directions, and because of your being apathetic to the demigods, everything was inauspicious. Then he says, O hardy one, you will have two contemptuous sons born of your condemned womb. Whew. Can you imagine a husband speaking to a wife like this? My God. Unlucky woman, they will cause constant lamentation to all the three worlds. Then he says, they will kill poor, faultless living entities, torture women, and enrage the great souls. And his last verse, at that time, the Lord of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the well-wisher of all living entities, will descend and kill them. He doesn't tell them how he's going to kill them. He just says they will kill them. Just as Indra smashes the mountains with his thunderbolts. So that's what Kashyapa says. That's what she remembers. And then, interesting, what she says in response, it is very good that my sons will be magnanimously killed by the arms of the personality of Godhead with his Sudarshan weapon. It's in the Sanskrit. She uses the word Sunabha, which is referring to his Sudarshan weapon. So she says that my sons will be magnanimously killed with his Sudarshan weapon. O my husband, may they never be killed by the wrath of the Brahman devotees. Because to be killed by the Brahman devotees, if a Brahman devotee or a Vaishnava devotee is upset, then there's no hope for that person. But if that person is um, killed by the Lord, in fact, then they're delivered. Because um, Krishna delivers persons who may be envious towards him, but he will not support persons who are envious towards his devotees. It becomes really, really personal for Krishna. He takes it less personally if they, insult him or hurt him. But he takes it really personally if they hurt his devotees. So that's how the Lord feels. Diti knows that, so she feels a sense of relief that her sons will be killed by Krishna, and specifically by his Sudarshan weapon. She makes that assumption. So back to the verse we were reading, in the previous verse, the Sudarshan weapon comes out. So she's thinking that this is it. The Sudarshan weapon has come out. That's what's going to kill my son Hiranyaksha. So at that moment, she feels a shudder run through her heart. And because she recalled the words of husband, and at that time, instead of milk, blood flowed from her breast. Being a mother of evil persons is not easy. Being a mother of, or being a parent of ill-behaved children is hard to deal with. And that is what Diti is dealing with right now. She's got not just ill-behaved, but a demon. Often we'll hear in the news about mass murders and um, we just heard of the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. I often think about, what the parents may go through and how they experience this uh, when when their child is all over the news. 20-year-old child, 18-year-old child, whatever, 10-year-old child killing with the guns. What it must feel like to be the mother of such a child, and how they process it. Recently, the parents of the child who did the mass murder in Michigan some years ago, they were just put in jail recently because they were found guilty of enabling their child somehow. And this was in a middle school, I want to say. So I obviously, Diti is going through a very tough time, really tough time. But at the heart of it, there's some solace knowing that Krishna is killing him. Now we hear in the seventh canto that Diti laments greatly after this killing of Hiranyaksha. Hiranyakashipu is addressing Diti, addressing his sister-in-law, the wife of Hiranyaksha, and others. And he tries to give them, Hiranyakashipu gives a long Bhagavatam class to his family members, including his mother Diti, because Diti is very distraught and is feeling a lot of grief during this time. So, anxiety, fear has gripped her. It's running through her heart. She recalls the words of her husband, and blood flowed from her breast. When we read the story, unlike Diti, we probably do not feel a shudder run through our body. The anxiety that may go through a person shows up in the physical form. So the emotion has a physical manifestation. When we don't have a physical manifestation, it indicates lack of emotion. But why is it that for Diti, she's feeling this deep anxiety? Because of her sense of possessiveness, that this is my son. So often we can trace back our fear, anxiety, pain, intimidation, a feeling of intimidation, can be tied to this aham and mama concept. Janasya mohoyam aham me mameti. The Bhagavatam says that we become bewildered by the conception of who am I, and then what is mine. So when the sense of possession is very strong, as in the case with Diti here, this is my son, she is feeling fear and anxiety that's gripping her heart. So it's all tied to, so in a Bhagavad Gita, very simple, raga, bhaya and krodha. So raga, from attachment, comes bhaya, fear, and krodha, anger. So when there are feelings of bhaya and krodha in our lives, it's always nice to consider, okay, what is the raga from which those emotions are rising? That kind of introspection is the path of a spiritualist, path of a transcendentalist, to keep introspecting to see, where is this coming from? What is Krishna trying to teach me in these various situations that trigger fear and anger? The last point I'll mention about this milk versus blood is Prabhupada writes, to drink milk is auspicious, which is transformed blood, but to drink blood is inauspicious, although they one and the same thing. And then he says this formula is applicable in the case of cow's milk also, meaning that to drink cow's milk is auspicious, but to drink the blood of cow, which is to drink the meat of the cow, is inauspicious. I don't know if any of you have been to a restaurant where they sell steaks, but sometimes when they go to steaks house, people will ask for rare steaks, medium rare, medium, etc. Basically, how much the meat is cooked, and it's considered the most palatable, uh, gourmet, the highest kind of food. In workplaces, if they want to treat someone really well, they take them to a steakhouse. And what is a steakhouse? The highest kind of food for material life today is a big piece of cow meat that's soaked in blood. Rare, medium rare, you'll see. In those kind of cooked meat, you can see the blood. People eat it. And that's like, whew, they've really treated me. Interesting, huh? So here, to drink blood is inauspicious, but what is the world we live in, what is most inauspicious is considered most auspicious. If someone takes me to a steakhouse, I am delighted. Craziness. It's absolute craziness. But milk is auspicious. It's the same item. So similarly, material activity is inauspicious in general because it brings about karma. But the same material activity, if offered to Vishnu as yagya, yagyartat karmano nyatra lokayam karma bandhana, Krishna explains in the third chapter of Gita, the same activity, if used in service to Krishna, that becomes auspicious. And it becomes the very means of delivering the soul out of this material world. Same activity. You can do it as karma, but then if offered to Krishna, it becomes auspicious and one becomes liberated. All right, we'll end there. See if any comments or thoughts, questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for a short class. So I was thinking about when you mentioned about how Diti might be feeling when to have such a son, right? She has seen all what he has done, right? So and I was thinking again when Hiranyakashipu is giving that lecture to, I mean, consoling her, right, after Hiranyaksha died. So I don't know how would have been she would have felt, right? So it would be, I mean, because I don't think I don't remember she saying anything in that section of Bhagavatam, right? So because he just talks and then he doesn't even want to cry, right? Something like that I remember. So because he wanted to keep that grudge on the Supreme Lord. But I think Mother Diti's response, because in the modern world, I think you talked about how a 20-year-old or 25-year-old doing some kind of activity, right, which is not right thing. And I mean, we have seen, I mean, maybe the mothers also sometimes, I mean, in the news saying that, okay, I mean, maybe few times, I don't know how they feel inside, but outside at least say, yeah, this is not good, right? I mean, they also, don't approve it and they will say, yeah, this person need to be punished.
Yeah.
Right? So, but then in this case, he comes and talks about so great. He wanted to kill Lord. I mean, of course, Diti knows that he is the supreme Lord, so, and she was happy in the discussion with Kashyapa Muni, right, in the earlier section that you quoted. So, I was just thinking, whole this she knows it. I mean, Hiranyakashipu, I mean, in his avatar of the demon, he is not aware of it, but Diti knows about the Lord,
Yeah.
right? So, I was just thinking what I mean, if you can just comment on that, bro. I was just not able to relate the whole thing. So,
Is your question, even though Diti understands about Krishna,
yeah.
why would she feel fearful about her son being killed?
No, not because she is happy that I think earlier section she was happy, but
True.
now, I mean, when Hiranyak, I mean, I was thinking that she would have been happy because she was happy earlier when she heard from Kashyapa Muni. Now also, I mean from the modern examples that we are seeing, right? So the mother generally when the son does such a heinous activity, right? I mean the mother also doesn't agree to that, right? Okay, it doesn't approve that.
Sure.
I'm thinking Diti is not approving what Hiranyaksha did. But again, when Hiranyakashipu comes and again he says that I will go and kill the Lord.
Yeah.
So what would be Diti would be feeling? So I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. She also realizes, because Kashyapa said it, that they're going to have to go through their karma. They're going to have to do the activity of trying to fight with the Lord. He knew that. Oh, she knew that. So she was accepting of it, but still, when the time came, when push comes to shove, when the rubber hits the road, she was naturally still feeling scared because there was identification that this person's my son. So there was some level of acceptance. That's why she didn't stop Hiranyakashipu. By the way, to answer your question, here we see in the second chapter of the seventh canto, Diti, the mother of Hiranyakashipu and Hiraksha, heard the instructions of Hiranyakashipu, and then she forgot her grief over her son's death, and thus engaged her mind and attention, understanding the real philosophy of life. So she became, focused on scripture and the messages of scripture after that, while Hiranyakashipu went on to do his nefarious activities. Um, it's a little complicated to know the future and how you deal with it. For example, when we have astrological readings done for our children, we have a little bit of sense by those astrological charts what the future holds for them. As a parent, we may know, but we may not try to interfere with it, as Diti probably didn't. She didn't try to tell, look, Hiranyakashipu, Hiraksha died, and you're going to start being a demon and try to fight Vishnu. Don't do that. He's going to kill you. I've been told that. Your father said that. Don't do it. She could have done it. She could have stepped in and said, don't do it, right?
Yeah.
She did not. She allowed for that person's natural growth and spiritual evolution to happen, as we would also with our children. They have to go through certain karma, they have to go through certain challenges, let them do that and go from there. Now we can be there as support as a parent. We can be there as support for our children as they go through challenges of life. But a lot of that, the ability for us to be support to our children largely depends on how we build a relationship of trust, where they can feel shelter and trust to come to us with problems.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if I addressed your question.
No,
But
you did. I think when you mentioned about astrological charts, I think it tricked. So because I was just thinking about something last couple of days, so
Oh, okay.
it hit me. So
Okay, any other comment?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhuji. This is an extension to what Lakshmikant Prabhu asked. So, as a devotee, when the Lord is going to execute somebody, how should we feel? Should we feel like the demigods? Oh, kill him, don't spare him. Or, oh my God, why don't you forgive him? Compassion, empathy, all of that. So what should be, the approach?
The approach, I think, should be how you feel. Like, each one of us are different persons. Consider very carefully in the seventh chapter of the Bhagavatam, seventh chapter of the first canto of the Bhagavatam, we have this very interesting situation where Ashwatthama is basically on trial.
Mm.
And on one side, you've got Arjun,
Mm-hmm.
got to do something about it. And
Mm-hmm.
you have Krishna and Bhima saying, kill him.
Mm.
And the other side, you have Yudhishthir and
Mm-hmm.
Draupadi saying, don't kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Both are intense about that position.
Mm-hmm.
Because both sides, Krishna and Bhima versus Yudhishthir and Draupadi,
Mm-hmm.
they all have their good reasons of why to kill him and why not to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
But because they're also devotees, they have different reasons, and it's good reasons. But all of them are good reasons. Now, what to do? How does Arjuna deal with the situation? Arjuna ultimately, Krishna saying something, his elder brother saying something. I mean, it's interesting that Arjuna killed him without killing him.
Mm.
The finesse, the fine refinement of Arjuna's intelligence to
Mm-hmm.
make the right decision in that
Mm-hmm.
situation was due to his connection with Krishna in the heart. Krishna in the heart as super soul guided him to do that right thing. Now, my point of bringing up that scene in the Bhagavatam is to explain that different devotees will approach different situations with different emotions and perspectives, and that's very natural and normal. So how should we feel? Well, we will feel what we feel. We can't not feel what we feel. We will feel what we feel. You try to suppress emotion, fine. But if how should we guide our emotion? I think is, with our intelligence, how should we guide our emotions when we see the Lord killing someone with our intelligence? How do we, and Modeta Sadur Apivrishchika Sarpahatya. So this is spoken by Prahlad Maharaj that Modeta means becoming very happy. Sadhus become very happy when demons like Hiranyakashipu, who are like scorpions, Vrishchika, scorpions, they like scorpions, are dead. Because scorpions bite, they hurt others. So when Krishna takes care of someone, takes care meaning, destroys him. Because when Krishna destroys someone because they are hurtful to others, then modeta sadhu. Sadhus are happy. I can show you can look it up later. It's 7, 9, 14.
Okay.
Let me bring that over.
Is this family
Can you see my screen?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Tadyacha manyum. So Prahlad is telling Hiranyakashipu, he's telling Nrsingadev, just give up your anger now. Yacha manyum asurascha hatastu. You've killed the asura. Modeta sadur. These sadhus, if you look at the word modeta, take pleasure, become happy. Vrishchika sarpa hatya. When Vrishchika is scorpion, snake is sarpa, hatya. By the killing of snakes or scorpion, sadhus become pleased. And then he goes on to say, people will remember your name, your form, and become vibhavaya, become fearless. So this is 7, 9, 14.
Yeah.
So how should we feel when the Lord kills people who are envious? Happy, pleasure. Because it's not that the demon, the soul dies. The soul never dies. The soul takes on a more fortunate situation next life. So
Yeah, Prabhuji, that's thank you for clarifying that, particularly bringing in the Ashwatthama, incident where it's, we always hear, Krishnanushilanam, and everyone expects Arjuna to behead because Krishna himself is saying, and this is right after the Bhagavad Gita was imparted to him and the war and everything. So anyone would have, but he being an exalted position, like he's also very elevated and he can think through these things. So he came to the right decision. He's like an acharya in that sense. Whereas ordinary people, mundane people like me, given that instruction, we would be bewildered. What? The Lord is asking me to kill somebody, freak out, and perhaps do it. So, and maybe Krishna was testing him in that sense also, correct?
Sure.
So yeah, and why I asked the question specifically was because acting on dharmic principles is one thing, but while listening to it, you can't really do anything other than feel or think about it. And that is why, I asked the question. And most of the texts are about how, if you're put in that position, what you're supposed to do. Versus, like if you are one of the observers, what should the thought in your mind be, how to guide it, which is why so many questions and doubts come about. So that's the reason I was asking, Prabhuji. So,
great.
Thank you.
Good discussion. Thanks. Shradhika?
Something that came to mind when Prabhu asked this question is the Sudama story, where when Sudama and Krishna didn't even ask him what he wanted, and Sudama was leaving, he was thinking, "Oh, Krishna's so kind," you know. And then when he reached and he saw the palace, "Oh, Krishna's so kind." So for us, you know, whether the Lord kills someone or Krishna's so kind, that's something that we can fall back to in any situation.
Hmm. Thank you, Mata. You know, that reminds of Shishtastakam where, you know, Lord Chaitanya says, Krishna, I am yours, you do whatever you want to do with me. You know, so thank you, Mata.
Okay, last comment if anyone has one. We're at 8:08. All right. Thank you all very much. We will connect next time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki